computer. I'm using a different computer, but anyway, we'd like to welcome JoAnn here, and I'd like to welcome everybody else. We've kind of introduced each other, and I'm going to take and turn the time over to her and let you go at it there. So the
Okay,
time is yours.
thank you, Scott, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for checking in. And luckily, this is only a 1 hour affair because I know some of you are cold and sleepy, and it's 7 o'clock over here, so it's past 10 where some of you are. Most of you are in Oregon. So thank you very much for joining us. And today's topic, our tea chat, is Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. And I've done this before quite a few times. The first time I did it here in Hawaii was in 2010, and people kept asking me, nobody really would know about that or care about that. And I said, well, it's worth a try and we'll see what happens. And so I had actually an exhibit and also an activity. So it's kind of like a combined class and activity sort of thing. And we had advertised it in advance regarding the topic and what it was about and what we were going to do. And guests were invited to bring pictures of anyone in their family or friends that they had lost that they'd want to share, maybe a little story about, or create an altar for them. So we had a lot of fun, and ever since then, we've just kept going, and it's been pretty good. So I just wanted to share with you some of the things that we do here in Hawaii. This particular holiday, it's originally a Mexican holiday, is pretty well known around the world, and maybe not as Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, but other forms in other cultures. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll get into it. You can ask questions at any time. I have quite a few slides, but I think we'll get them done. And if you have questions, you can just ask as we go along, because sometimes at the end we just forget. So Dia de los Muertos literally means Day of the Dead in English. And as I mentioned, it's one of Mexico's most important holidays. And, just like Halloween, which was yesterday, and people think this is Halloween because it's a day after, and it really isn't. There's a lot of elements that are similar, but it's a huge holiday. And just like people, you walk around here or you drive around, and it's probably this way all across the United States, is you see all these massive Halloween arrangements and setups and haunted houses and lights. Pretty much it's the same way in other places where this holiday is celebrated. And basically, the celebration is to honor and just remember, never forget our deceased, our loved ones, family and friends, and just to celebrate their lives, their memory, and in different ways that we remember them. This will totally, when you look at all this, you'll think, gosh, that's a lot of work. And I remember every year when I put my altar up, I think, oh my gosh, it's time to get the altar out. And it is so much work. But then as I'm doing it, it really brings back good memories. It makes me happy. And I usually set mine up October 1st and leave it all the way through November, because it is a labor of love. And also, November is a time to thank them for everything that they brought to our lives. So I wanted to share this ritual with you. And also, I incorporated, because I'm having tea all the time, tea parties and tea celebrations. So how I incorporate that into this particular holiday. So the Day of the Dead, I'm going to share some facts with you. And if you take a look at this really colorful print here, you have a skull in the middle, and you have the third eye in the mind's eye. And you'll see everywhere all these huge eyes. And those are, like they say, eyes are the windows to our souls. And so that's very much believed in a lot of cultures, not just the Mexican culture. Okay, so what is Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead? It's actually a celebration that is November 1st and 2nd, and not just today. So it's starting today, and it's an annual celebration of life and death. It's observed all over the world, really, in just different kinds of rituals that people have. And the whole point is to remember our family and friends that have passed. And also, it helps us transform the grief that we feel into a celebration and actually into an acceptance. I know people say, oh, you never get over it. And you probably don't. I know that I have a really difficult time with it, but this kind of helps. And so, those of us that are celebrating, we call what we do ofrendas, offerings. And it's an offering of anything: food, drink, dance, music, personal items. And in Mexico, they really believe in 3 stages of death. The first one is when we stop to function, our bodies just slow down, and then that's it. The space that we occupy starts to lose its meaning. We start to fade into the next phase. And that second death comes when we return to earth, whether we're buried, cremated, or I know now, real popular way of um, leaving our space is, I guess, fertilizing your important spaces, your backyard, your special gardens or whatever. I hear that's a big business now, and people are saying that it's more earth friendly. So I've yet to look into that more thoroughly. And then the third death, and they call it the definitive death, that's it, is when there's no one left alive to remember us. So, as the saying goes, our dead are never dead to us until we have forgotten them. So, think about people that we think about all the time because it's part of maybe our education. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Mother Teresa, they're still alive to us because they live in perpetuity. We perpetuate their legends, their myths, their everything that they've left to us. We just kind of keep going, and in our families we tend to do that too until there's no one else to tell the family. So the legacies that they leave us, we keep sharing them, and that's what keeps them alive. And that's what's really special about this holiday. So, what is it exactly? One of the main ways that Day of the Dead is known by are the many altars that people set up everywhere. In Spanish, altar is altares, and you can look at altars and you don't really think about the symbolism until someone starts pointing out different elements. So just to give you an example, a creation with symbolism, and it carries a lot of different meanings, and real true altars, the die-hard Day of the Deaders that go and just go all out and have room and space to create these altars, they have different levels. And as you can see here in this presentation, um, 2 levels represent the division between earth and heaven. 3 levels could represent the Holy Trinity, and 7 levels, I mean, it just goes on and on. So you'll see a lot of threes, and that does represent the Holy Trinity. The candles, you're supposed to put up a candle for everyone that is represented on your altar, but my altar is so huge and there's so many people there that I don't have enough candles for everyone. But you you can do gigantic candles. You don't have to do that. It's just really pretty when they're all lighted up. It looks so nice. So the candles represent hope and faith and guiding your spirits to come back through the darkness. 4 candles on the top level, the cardinal directions, and that's always been the case. Lanterns, people hang lanterns above their altars, and again, the guiding light for them to return to your home or to their homes. Also represents the Star of Bethlehem that led the Magi to the birth of the Savior. So there's a lot of symbolism, a lot of religious connotations that you'll see. Copal is the sap of a pine tree burned as incense to attract the spirits, again, drawing them home and also warding off the evil. So there's a lot of a lot of markers to guide them home. The candles, the lanterns, the incense, and of course the marigolds, cempasúchil, are used as garlands and wreaths. They're also used a lot in India. And again, the fragrance, the brightness is a sign, a marker for them to find their way home. It also symbolizes the brevity of life, because, flowers don't last long. I know that some of the flowers that we pick here, for example, are gardenias that I love so much. The next day, they're kind of like all gone. Same thing with marigolds. Okay. On my altar and many altars, you'll display a wash basin or something. I don't have a wash basin. I just have a tray with a soap, towel, mirror, and a comb or a brush. So when they come home, they can get themselves all ready and meet and greet and get into their parties and all of that. So yeah, they want to look as good as we do when we're still here. So the
Joe,
calavera, yes.
are you showing different slides?
Oh, what?
Oh, I just see the original one. Have you changed?
Yeah, I have. Do you not see that? You
I'm
don't
not
see?
seeing them.
No,
Oh, how do I?
I'm
Oh,
not
I'm
seeing
looking-
the slides either. This is
Oh,
Jane.
okay. Let me go back. How do I do that then? Let me see.
I don't know. All I do is I see the original slide and that's it.
Okay, I'm sharing. It says you are sharing slides. But I
And it
guess
says on mine that we're viewing slides, but I only see the
Do you see
original.
it
Oh,
now?
now I see.
Here
Now I
we
see
got
it.
something.
okay,
Here we go.
I'm sorry. It says you are sharing slides, so I thought you were seeing them. Okay, so let me okay, you didn't see that one then, right? When I
No.
talked about, okay, so there's all those eyes, the skull, and you can see the mind's eye in the main skull in the middle, and then you can see eyes everywhere. And that's when I mentioned that those eyes represent the window to our soul. Okay, I'm so sorry about that. All right. So we talked about the three deaths, the first, the second, the third. I can send you this, by the way, as well. We start celebrating November 1st and 2nd. And so today's the first day. We talked about the altars, the candles, the lantern, the copal, which is the incense, marigolds. And this is where we were. So the wash basin, the soap, the towel, the mirror, and then the calaveras are the skeletons that you see everywhere. And now they're incorporated into, I mean, they always have been for Halloween, but now they've got really the Day of the Dead theme going. Personal items that you can put on your altar, toys, photos, tools, utensils from representing their professions or their hobbies. Papel picado is the paper that you see, and you'll see it in later pictures. And it's an Aztec custom of using the tissue paper, and they cut all those intricate designs, and they're supposed to flutter around your altar. I haven't put mine up. Mine actually outside of my home. And just like the marigolds and flowers where they deteriorate in a day, so does the paper. It's tissue paper, and so it's very delicate. And those two things, the flowers and the tissue paper, represent just the frailty of life and how delicate life is. We have water on the altar, and it's to quench the thirst of those that come back home to visit and to celebrate, and also used for them to purify, to cleanse themselves with the towel and the soap and so forth. Salt is on the table for the same thing, to purify their spirits and their souls, and also to season the food that you set out on the altar. Pan de muerto, bread of the dead, is like many of you probably know, pan dulce, sweet bread, Mexican sweet bread. But these are shaped into different, Day of the Dead shapes and so forth. And then there's usually a cross on your altar, and it's supposed to, symbolize again the cardinal points and also the Christian cross. And then typical foods of your loved ones that they liked, you can put on the table. I don't put anything on the table because it's, you know, you have to, just food safety. I just don't do that. Fake food I might, but I don't have any fake food. So, okay. So who started Day of the Dead? It originated in Mexico centuries ago and way before the Spanish conquistadores even got to Mexico. So in the 1500s, a lot of our indigenous cultures, the Olmecs, the Aztecs, the Mayans, they were already celebrating with their own celebrations, their own rituals, and so forth. And then when the Spanish came and they conquered Mexico, they started taking a lot of these rituals back to Spain, back to Europe. So something that all these civilizations, the Aztecs, the indigenous cultures, they celebrated the afterlife. And to them, it was just a cycle. Death was not, this thing that, oh my God, it's the end of the world and you just can't ever recuperate or survive it. To them, it was just a continuation of life. It was another phase of life. Okay. And as I mentioned, there's a huge religious influence behind this particular ritual. And you can see this is a grave, also an altar in Mexico. But you can see the Christian cross, and all the orange stuff are the marigolds. You can see probably in this particular cemetery, there's quite a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that I can see. And it could be like, a family grave who celebrates Day of the Dead. It started off as a Mexican holiday, and it's just permeated through all Latin America, and also all the immigrants that we have coming in. There used to be border states, California, Texas, Arizona. Now they go all over the United States, and that's why Day of the Dead has become so popular everywhere, and not just the United States, but all over the world. So it's not just the liveliness, the beauty, but a lot of people are drawn to that concept that the afterlife it's just a continuation. It's not, they're not dead and then that's it, we forget them forever. And I just wanted to give you an example of that. Around the world, festivals that honor the dead. In Japan, we have the Obon Festival. We celebrate it here in Hawaii big time, so it's a big thing. Cambodia, the Pagoda, the Festival of the Dead. In Korea, they have the Fall Harvest, and it coincides with their 3-day festival. They give thanks to their dead for providing, their crops and their harvest and so forth. In China, they have the Hungry Ghost Festival. That's a month long. Nepal, the Festival of the Cows, and that's where they really, really have great use of all the marigold. And then in the United States, we have Memorial Day. It's a federal holiday. We remember those who have died while serving our country, and we do pretty much the same thing. We have religious services, flowers, flags, potlucks, and picnics, and it's become one of those things where it leads us into summer. So it's, a big celebration. So it's not just something that Mexicans do or Latin Americans, Latinos. It's really something that happens worldwide in different forms. So how do people celebrate the Day of the Dead and where? In Mexico and a lot of other countries, graveyards, families go and they clean the graves. They set up these really spectacular and very detailed altars with photos, the candles, the food, and they do take real food. They go and they have parties there. They take musicians. In homes, if you're just relegated to your home and doing that, you can create an altar, and they don't have to be elaborate. You'll see pictures of some. Mine is pretty elaborate, but that's because now that I do this, people will just come and say, please, can you put him or her on your altar, or my pet? And I do. It's just a lot of fun. And so last night I sent out an email to people that I know that I have on the altar, their families, and I tell them, your family member, your friend is being remembered, and you're welcome to come and visit anytime, and it's just a lot of fun. So Day of the Dead is celebrated in public and private places, parades, there's festivals, universities, libraries, schools. There's so many places where this holiday is celebrated. Here's a picture of a graveyard in Mexico, and you can see they've already started taking a ton of flowers. People are busy cleaning. It's a huge affair and a very, very beautiful one. Now, in homes, people will set up their altars in many different ways. The first time I had a Day of the Dead workshop activity here in Hawaii, I asked participants to bring anything that they wanted to bring to set up an altar. So this is Mary, and I met her. I still know her, but I met her at that time, and she brought she cut up the dress of her best friend to make the tablecloth for her altar, and she put her best friend's cup, and just candles and all kinds of little goodies there, flowers. You can see these slides, right? Still,
Yes.
Good, thank you. And then here's a picture that I just pulled off the internet of a pretty elaborate altar, and you can see the different 1, 2, 3, 4, the different levels. And of course, across the arch are the marigolds and butterflies. Butterflies are so popular in Mexico. You can see the skull up there. I see one tiny picture on the second, from the bottom, the second level. I see a picture in the middle. Looks like a tomato and chiles and by the baskets. And maybe this altar is for that one person. I also see on the first level in the basket in the middle, there's some Mexican sweetbread there. So they are putting food there. On the first level, you can see some mariachi singers. And then, of course, the papel picado, that tissue paper that represents the fragility of life. It's very, very decorative and beautiful. In public places, as soon as I did the first one, the first Day of the Dead, then things started, people, started paying attention and thinking. So our Volcano Art Center decided we're going to do something. So they did jewelry, and they dressed up. You can see a person all made up. And over at our East Hawaii Cultural Center, we had music, food, and we had the 2-day celebration. So now people are doing it all over the island here. We also have a very huge Mexican population, and not just Mexican, I should say. It is Mexican, a huge Mexican population, but also other immigrants that represent other parts of Latin America, because they come to Hawaii to work in our hotel industry, our tourism industry, and also picking crops, coffee, especially coffee on the Kona side, a huge Mexican population that is picking coffee. And so they do observe this holiday, and you can see signs of it all over the island. It's pretty cool. Okay, here's another altar. In this altar, they have a huge mural in the background with a lot of flowers. The Virgin Mary takes center stage in the top of the altar. And then and they of course have all the papel picado. And instead of a lot of pictures, I don't see a picture of anyone really, but you can see all those people from that paper, those stretchy things. And then, of course, on the floor, they have all the food. They have the marigolds shaped in the form of a cross. And all those plates there and cups probably represent their honorees, the ones that they are honoring, their loved ones and their friends, family, and so forth. Okay. Here's another one. This one, I see one person on the very top level of the altar, the different foods. You can see some angels, and you can see Jesus, and some candles, a lot of marigolds. So people do a lot of different things. I also see in the back behind the picture, maybe the young woman's name, because you can see the marigolds in the form of letters. And again, a lot of candles and lights the way for our loved ones to come and visit us. This is my altar. And so my sister, studied in Mexico, study abroad. And we didn't grow up with this. She learned all of this when she was studying in Mexico, and she brought it back. And at the very bottom where you see all the skeletons, that's actually a massive piece of fabric that she brought back. And so I like to put it there. And so at the very first level, I have my grandmother, my Japanese grandmother, and she's there. And
this is Jane. I lost her voice.
Hi, Jane.
I lost her voice.
Can you hear
Now
me?
I can, yes.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Anyway, those are pictures and funeral cards and just everything you can imagine that people give me. You might see on the right-hand side, Frida Kahlo, a Frida Kahlo doll. My sister made that. And the masks at the very top, one of my nieces made those. She makes those, and yeah, it's just, and you can see the little marigolds, roses, just everything. And yeah, it just keeps growing. People keep giving me all kinds of stuff. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of work, but labor of love, but it's so much fun. And when I'm doing it, you just have to smile because it brings back memories of all these people or knew, and what they mean to you, how they impacted your life, and the influence, and who you are, who they made you today. This is, I don't know, some of you are familiar with Sandra Cisneros. She's a famous Mexican author, and probably her best known book is The House on Mango Street. And she had her house set up in Texas, and she devoted an entire room to her mother. And one of her friends happened to be there and saw it, an artist, and said, this needs to be curated in a museum. So some museum actually asked her to do it. And so she set it up again, and it's all in honor of her mother. It's really a beautiful, beautiful display. Here's a Japanese altar, and the flowers, the incense. The picture is hard to see because it's a black and white, but we just recently went to see my Japanese grandmother's altar here in Hawaii. And again, we take flowers, we light the incense, we sweep the grave, clean it all up, and put little food, little food items and so forth. So my father is Japanese and my mother's Mexican, so it kind of goes together pretty good. You might see this doll all over the place, even at Walmart and everywhere. She's the Aztec goddess of Day of the Dead. They call her Catherine. And as it says here, the lanky skeletal female figure, and she's always dressed up. She always looks good, and she represents the very rich, the Lady of the Dead, and meaning that even the rich cannot avoid death. We're all gonna go, and so that's her. And you can see all kinds of iterations. Day of the Dead dolls, they're all over the place, and you can find them in every single occupation. The first is a married couple. You've got your Harley rider, and then the pole dancer, and the police giving a ticket, and the nurse.
I lost your sound again. This is Jane.
I don't know why you're losing. Can you hear? No?
I can hear fine. I don't know.
It might be Jane. It might be your connection. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And the rest of you.
We'll get the information later. It's fine. Keep going.
Okay. So anyway, there's a doll to represent anything and everything, even your pets. And this one, the pole dancer, I put that one in there because I kind of feel that's me. When I went through 16 months of chemo, and I always would go in and walk around at the chemo facility with my chemo pole. And so now that that's over, that represents me in the old days. So that's what that's all about. Here's the papel picado that I was talking about, perforated paper. And we don't use it just for the Day of the Dead, but major holidays, birthday celebrations, any kind of celebration, we like to, hang them, and they're really pretty because you can see them kind of blowing in the wind, and they're just very beautiful, very delicate. And again, that delicate nature of the tissue paper represents the delicate nature of life and the relationship between life and death. So Day of the Dead has become so commercialized, and you'll see it everywhere you go, especially for Halloween. And so this is Coco is the Disney Pixar movie. And if you haven't seen it, you should get online and stream it. It's really fun. This picture here shows Miguel, the little guy with the guitar, and his family way back in the day. Coco is his grandmother. And throughout the generations, music, he comes from a very musical family, but it's banned at some point. Some generation bans music in the family because something terrible happens involving music. But he's born with this love of music, and he wants to play so bad, but he has to hide because he's not allowed. So the movie takes you through the whole kind of how he gets his whole family back into music, and also really depicts that when you start forgetting about the memories of your loved ones, the departed, that's when that third stage of death, when nobody remembers you anymore. So you always want to keep them alive in memory by honoring them and putting up your altar, or even a picture. It doesn't even have to be an altar, just the way it's any way you want to remember them. So it's a great movie. You should try to stream it. Beverages, here are two sides of the Monster can. Monster juice is that, what is it? An energy drink, right? And then here's a wine, a vineyard, Villa Vega Vineyard, Los Amigos in Paso Robles, California. So very, very commercialized. This is Target. They go all out with food. They have special food, drinks. They have all these things. If you want to set up an altar, just go to Target. Right now, it's all on sale. Okay. Okay. Now, the marigold. We've been talking about the marigold, and the marigold comes from the Virgin Mary, Mary's gold, the Virgin Mary's flower. And the Latin name is calendula, and it comes from the word calendae, which is the first year of the month, or little calendar. And it says here, it bloomed throughout Europe in all the monasteries and the altars. They always had them. But that's only because the Spanish conquered Mexico and took all these seeds back, and they flourish in Europe. They just grow like crazy. But it's not because they're native to Europe. They came from the Aztecs. Marigold, the flower, is also called pot marigold because you can eat it, you can drink it, and it was used to season the cooking pots of the poor people. And it was used in instead of saffron, because saffron is so expensive, so it can color your foods. It's like a dye. And it's I say at the bottom, it's a value added ingredient to tea today. Black tea, green teas, all herbal teas, very popular. Companies will add marigold, and you'll see little marigold petals dried up because it is value added. That's what we call it. Okay. It's hardy, it's edible, it's used all over the place because that's the flower of the poor people. I know my mother-in-law hated it. She hated the smell of it, and she hated the flower because it reminded her of the dead. That's a person that can't accept that. Okay, so the Aztecs believed that the marigolds guided the spirits back to their altars, back to their homes because of the vibrancy of the color and also the scent. So marigolds to them and to a lot of people represent a lot of different things. And again, the fragility of life. They were native to the New World. The Aztecs used them at their altars, their sacrifices. They attributed magic to them, had a lot of medicinal properties, which they do, and a lot of religious meaning for them. They use them to treat hiccups. If you were struck by lightning, or if you wanted to cross a body of water, you took them as kind of like a talisman to help you be safe. And as I mentioned earlier, the Spanish explorers took them back to Europe, and they're used for religious ceremonies. All right, so taking all of this, people started asking me, well, you know, can you show me how to make those Day of the Dead cookies or the dead bread or sugar skulls? So then I just decided, let's have a Day of the Dead tea. And that's how it grew. And we have them every year now. So some of the things that I might have, and just wanted to share this with you if you ever want to do something like this, and you don't have to use any of it. You can have a Day of the Dead tea with Oreo cookies. It doesn't matter. It's just a lot of fun to my family. We like to remember and talk about. It's a good time to have fun and talk about, oh, remember Aunt so and so, and she was so funny and crazy and, you know, just irreverent and eclectic and eccentric and everything. We just like to do all that. So sugar cookies, dead bread, sugar skulls, butternut squash scones, favorite foods that your ancestors or your friends loved. Here I have agua de chile, de chia y limón. This is chia seed and lemon water. Té de canela, which I'm having right now, is cinnamon tea. And then mango tango is a tea that we came up with. And it's actually tea with mango flavoring and marigold flowers inside. So what are some of the health benefits of marigolds? I mentioned that, you know, back in the day, they ate it. They still do. They use it in their soups and their drinks. Marigold helps with inflammation, especially around broken bones. And it's an antiseptic. It has antimicrobial properties. And look at all the things it helps with: skin diseases, ulcerations, eczema, lesions, boils, yeast infections, herpes, varicose veins, athlete's feet, stomach ulcers, acne. A friend of mine, when we were going to school, I never knew what, I always thought her family was really bizarre, but they used to get the petals and soak them in water, and then the mother would make a poultice and apply it to their skin. And she has beautiful skin, and I guess that's why they use it for skincare. And back in the day, we thought it was all like witchcraft craziness. That she is so weird. Her family does these really bizarre things. And look, now today, multi-million dollars in cosmetics, and they use they make it into powders. They use it, you know, like I said, in drinks and so forth. So who knew, right? So agua de chia y limón is chia and lemon water, and you can sweeten it and whatever. So chia, lemon, or black and green tea, or just the chia and lemon water. Chia seeds are gluten and cholesterol free. They're known as an endurance food, and they have protein, omegas, fiber, calcium, potassium, iron, and we don't eat enough of it. And you know, it just, those little seeds are so tiny. You can put them in your cereal, in your oatmeal, cream of wheat, in your salads, anything. And it has so much to offer the body. So it absorbs fat soluble vitamins, again, arthritis, diabetes, because it absorbs sugars. It decreases blood pressure, helps with acid reflux, improves cardiac health. So that little tiny seed is like a superfood. And so don't be afraid to try it. And in this, I just mixed chia with lemon and then added some agave syrup. And you've got a nice little refreshing drink. You can have it hot. You can mix it with other herbal teas or black, green, white, oolong, lemons. People just like right now we have lemons all over the place, and we'll say, hey, you want some lemons? Oh no, I've got them growing in my backyard. I see lemons, people throwing them away. You can zest the lemon, freeze the zest or save the juice and freeze that. Lemons are so good. A lot of our bodies are really too acidy, and so lemon is counterintuitive. What? Lemon is an acid, but it's going to give you more acid? No, it's not. It's going to kind of give you an alkaline effect and balance your pH. It helps break down kidney and gallstones. It's great for worms, breathing, free radicals. It's good for aging, and people don't realize some of those benefits. Lemon is very, very popular in Mexico, so they use a lot of it. Té de canela is cinnamon tea. And all I do is, and I made some this morning, I'm drinking some right now. You can have it hot or cold. I love it hot, especially like Lavanda says, we're freezing today and it's probably already in the 70s here. But all I do is get some cinnamon sticks and throw them in a pot of water and boil them. And you can go from really light to really dark. And you can just keep boiling those cinnamon sticks until you don't have any flavor. You can add sugar. I don't, but you can. And sometimes when I'm baking, when it calls for cinnamon, I'll add cinnamon water. You can do your oatmeal, add cinnamon water. It's so delicious. So cinnamon has a lot of health properties too. Good for cholesterol, your blood sugar, cancer prevention, E. coli, antibacterial. So a lot of us will just go get a little tea bag of, cinnamon tea. And I don't know if I mentioned to you in one of my previous tea chats, when tea is being processed, the leaves, the actual leaves, when it's being processed in these huge factories. When I was in Japan and I went actually picking tea at a tea farm, and then we go from the, like they say, farm to table. Well, we're out there in the farm picking the tea, then we bring it in and we process it and whatever. We were doing matcha at one point, and matcha is a powder, and you have to wear like all this protective covering, because if you inhale it, you're going to get all, it's a powder. So you have on your mask and your goggles and your headgear and complete like like those, you see those astronauts with those outfits. And at the end of the day, you're covered in green. And the machines you can run your hand on the wall, a finger on the wall on a machine, and you're going to get dust. You're going to see dust. And what they do, and you'll see it all over the floor, pieces of tea leaves that are dried, dust, everything. And what they do at the end of the day is they go with these huge industrial vacuums and they vacuum everything up, and then they process it, they sanitize it, and they, do all these things to it, and they make them into tea bags. And that's called dust and fannings. The fannings are the little pieces of tea. That's Lipton tea, that's low grade tea, that's cheap tea. But we all drink it, we all grew up with it. Those tea bags came out as a matter of convenience in the 1800s, when tea was being exported to Europe. And some tea vendor had this idea, saw his wife sewing, and she said, and he asked her, hey, can you give me some of that silk that you're using and make me some little bags to put some tea in? I want to go around and give samples away. He was a salesman. He wanted to give samples to show people, oh, here, try this. Just dunk it in your little cup or your pot of tea. And that's how the tea bag was born. Now, of course, they say, oh, we put tea in silk bags. Those are not silk bags. They look silk, but they're not. But there is, in many cases, high-end tea shops will sell high-end tea in tea bags. But we're more familiar with the poor people's tea bag, Lipton and all those other ones. So instead of I'm just saying, instead of getting a cinnamon tea bag, try getting just some tea, sticks of tea, and boiling them in water. You're going to tell the difference. Your house is going to smell fabulous, especially on a cold day. It feels so good. It smells good. It tastes good. So try tea sticks. I mean, cinnamon sticks. And do any of you remember toothpicks, cinnamon toothpicks? Or was that
Yes.
just?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. And we used to, munch on them. Well, you can get a stick of cinnamon and chew on it, and it just tastes so good and it's refreshing. You can even eat it if you want, if you get it down to that little size where you can swallow it or whatever. But anyway, cinnamon itself has a lot of health properties. And then this mango tango tea that we came up with was mango flavor with marigolds. And of course, marigold has so many health benefits. So we really enjoyed it. Here's a picture of the Day of the Dead bread of the dead. And it's like it says, it's decorated, it's formed with little bones. You form the dough any way you want. And the bread itself represents a circle of life, birth to death. And it's so delicious too. And people make them like crazy and they sell them. You can order them online. Okay. Here's some sugar skulls. We've had classes on making them. They're so fun. And the kids decorate them all up. And you can go online. There's all kinds of, tutorials, YouTube, how to make them, where to buy them. You don't have to make them. You can buy them. They're shipped to you. They're fresh and they're cute. You can decorate your altar. Don't let the ants get to them. And it's just fun and pretty. And that's it. Enjoy your tea. And so here's a little tea party. Well, I just went to one Sunday. It was so fun. It was a Harry Potter tea, and there were some pets there, and they were dressed up, and it was a lot of fun. So, yeah, it just, it's just a fun thing. And then here's some resources for Day of the Dead, if you want to look into it. The Smithsonian Institute, of all places, has magnificent links to Day of the Dead. You can check your libraries, your schools, your universities, community centers. And if you can't find something like that and you want to do something, you can do it yourself. Just start your own activity. Go to your library and say, hey, you know what? I'd really like to try this Day of the Dead thing. If you're interested, I can. You don't have to be an expert in it. You don't have to be Mexican. You don't have to be Latin American. People do this all over the world, and it's just so much fun. And it's just, to me, it just feels so good for the soul to remember your loved ones and bring people over and have them, celebrate and just celebrate everything that they stood for, everything that they did for us, our history. It's really a neat thing. So yeah, you should try it. So any questions?
Do you know
Anybody?
where you can, this is Jane, where could you get some of those tissues that you talked about? How do you acquire those?
Just on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
What is that thing? Oriental Trading Company, Amazon,
Okay.
Amazon
Okay.
Marketplace, Target. It's everywhere. You can make some too, but I tried and I was like a failure. But they're very pretty. I have some, and you know what? Because with our weather here and the humidity and everything just disintegrates, Target sells these really cool ones and they're felt. I should have taken a picture of it. I have it outside and they're felt. And so I use them every year and they're really pretty. They're very colorful and yeah, they're fun.
We have a Mexican restaurant, a Hispanic restaurant close by, and they have some of those things as decorations within
Yeah.
and without their location, and they're very pretty. So
Yeah, Amazon has everything, right? Amazon
well,
and
thank you for
Target,
that.
they have everything.
Okay.
Any
So
other questions?
JoAnn Lavanda here. You mentioned you're drinking cinnamon tea, so it's just cinnamon with water, or is it with a?
So I just put water in a little pot and I threw some cinnamon sticks in there, put it on medium and let it boil. And then, when you start smelling it, it's ready.
It's ready.
And
Okay.
sometimes it gets, you can steep it really
Hot.
really light. I like it dark, and sometimes it's so dark it looks like reddish, brown, dark. Now, cinnamon, people think that it's just one of those things that that you bake with, but in fact, when the colonists, the English colonists, were very, very upset because they were being taxed on the tea that they loved. So the colonists left and came to the United States, started their little colony. They brought with them as much tea as they could possibly pack and carry and ship to the colonies. And all of a sudden, their tea started running out, because by the time they left, they were so, tea was so ingrained in their lifestyle that they needed it. It was like they were addicted to it. And England knew this and was upset with them, so they started taxing them heavily on tea. And that's why the Boston Tea Party happened, and they said, the hell with you guys, we're not going to pay those taxes. And they dumped all the tea in the harbor, and they said, we'll show you. And what did they do? They went out into their gardens and they looked for rose petals and rosemary and thyme and oregano and cinnamon and whatever. And they developed what we know today as herbal teas, but they call them Liberty teas. And that's why if you ever visit antique shops and you'll see little cups that say Liberty or teapots that say Liberty, those were the original colonists. And that's where herbal teas come from. And herbal tea, even though we call it a tea, is not a tea, not a true tea. A true tea only comes from one plant, Camellia sinensis, whereas an herbal comes from any part of a plant. For example, the root of a plant, roots, seeds, leaves, stems, flowers, buds, pods. That's an herbal. It's not a true tea, but we call them that. They're really called tisanes, Tisanes. But back then, the colonists called them Liberty teas, because they thought, you know what? We're liberated from you guys. We're not going to stand for this. We're going to come up with our own teas. So cinnamon is a very, very popular English tea, but it's known around the world.
It's a Liberty tea.
It's a Liberty tea. Yeah. Liberty.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can just throw the sticks in a pot of water, boil them. When you start smelling the fabulous fragrance, you'll know it's ready. And you can use honey, agave, sugar. I like it just straight. When we were growing up, I remember we used to put it in our babies' bottles sometimes, like when they were. But anyway, so yeah, it's delicious.
What about, would it have a different effect if you use powder? Cinnamon powder?
Yeah, it would, because cinnamon powder, cinnamon powder, you have to have practically boiling water for it to dissolve, right? It's like matcha tea, the powder needs to dissolve. But with a stick, and remember, I have a cinnamon bush outside. If I take a piece off and go boil it, you're always going to have a deeper, richer flavor from the dried. And that goes for any herbal. If you're using basil, rosemary, thyme, whatever, it's always going to be deeper when it's dried as opposed to fresh. But you can
Here's a question. Here's a question from Jane. So you can grow a cinnamon bush. Is that, can you do that in other environments? Like if I'm in the Midwest, can I do a cinnamon bush? Or are they?
I'm not sure, but I would sure try it.
Okay.
I know here we can grow cinnamon like crazy. So I have, and there's different varieties too. So I have this little bush, and I just like to go by. And by the way, this cinnamon bush that I have outside came from Texas, because my grandfather was born in Texas. My grandmother grew it there, and then she took it to California. And from California, I brought it here.
Oh,
so
okay.
So it grew in Texas.
Okay.
Like
so it could be available, even if not locally. We can get it somewhere here. I do have cinnamon sticks, but
you should try it. That would be interesting.
I have to try it. I got cinnamon sticks. I gotta go in the kitchen and try it.
Let me know. Let me
Yeah,
know.
okay.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Thank
try
you.
it too. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
maybe you could
So-
try it indoor, Jane.
Try indoor.
Yeah, try growing it indoors.
Well,
And
Lavenda, since you're here, I'm just gonna go cut a rooting and give it to you.
oh yeah, okay,
Try
thanks.
it. Yeah. Yeah, it smells really nice. For Thanksgiving, because it grows year round, for Thanksgiving, I like to get big pieces of the leaf and put it at the table because, you know, people like you go to Trader Joe's and buy all that stuff that makes your house smell like Thanksgiving. But I just like to put it everywhere because it just smells, if you brush by it, like if you walk by it or just touch it, it just
I,
smells so,
I
so
do
nice.
that with this rosemary.
Yeah, yeah, same thing. Same thing.
Does
Yeah.
the bush get quite large?
It gets quite large. In fact,
Yes.
Okay.
I'm thinking of taking it out of the ground and making a bunch of pots. It makes
Oh,
a
okay.
beautiful wood ornamental. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Thank you.
If you email me, I can send you pictures of it.
All right. I might do
Yeah, but
that.
there's different types, different types of cinnamon
Okay.
the plants. Yeah. So thank you. Any other questions?
JoAnn, this is Janet in Oregon, and I want to
Janet.
thank you so much for this program. I had really no correct knowledge of what Day of the Dead was. So this has been so informative and fun.
Oh,
So
I'm
thank you for
glad.
all of those little details. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about it and maybe participate.
Thank you, Janet. You know, I really encourage you guys in your local community, go check it out. Start asking, do we have something like that? Because you know, people think it's like at first when I first was going to do this was in 2010, and I was talking to my friends about it, and they go, that's really freaky, you know, that's like, ew, I don't even, but you know, it's reality, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, we're all
So,
gonna,
you know, it might seem to be if you don't know anything about it,
yeah,
but now I do. And so it's not freaky. It's very interesting.
it really is very beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And, you know, it just gives you that opportunity to connect and to remember, like, oh, yeah, grandma used to do this. And so on my altar, I have a packet of seeds. My grandfather was a farmer. I have a little tiny sewing machine and some thread. My grandmother was a seamstress. My stepfather, I don't know, was just like had this thing for yo-yos, and he used to come home from work and teach us how to yo-yo. So I have a little yo-yo there, and I've got all kinds of things, and it just makes me happy to walk by. And so tonight, you know, they're going to show up tonight. I've got to light all the candles and, you know, make sure everything's there for them and everything. And they're going to party for 2 days here. So I always invite my friends, come over if you want. You know, there's always food and drink here, and we just sit around and talk story and have a good time. So yeah, you should try that, because I think for our children, I can't imagine. I only have one son. I can't imagine that he would do this. And you know, people think, what are you going to do with all that? I don't know. Somebody's going to come and throw it away when I leave this earth. But while I'm here, it's going to happen. And I like to, we have a big Thanksgiving. We have a Thanksgiving for the singletons because most of us are widows or widowers. So we have this singletons thing, and people come over, and the display is always up, and they go, "Oh my God, I didn't know you knew her or him or whatever." So it's a lot of fun. It's just, it brings back good memories. It's fun, and it's a good day on Thanksgiving. You know, a lot of the people that we love and cherish are not here with us, but they are in spirit, and their pictures are there, and we talk to them and celebrate for them, and they're there. Yeah, it's fun. So
You've
try,
given me
you
some
should try
great
it.
ideas. Thank you.
And this is
JoAnn,
Jane again, and I agree with the last speaker. I did not know much about this except hearing the Day of the Dead, and now I know so much more and know, you know, like the religious ties and the food ties and even the nutrition part and all the pictures and the memories, and that's
Yeah,
nice.
you don't have to do like all sugar Halloween. People go, is this like an extension of Halloween? In a way it is, because if you look back at the Christian calendar and the roots of Christianity and whatever, there are so many parallels, but it's not Halloween. And
Right.
so by the way, somewhere in there in the presentation, today is All Saints Day. Tomorrow
Yes.
is All Souls Day. Today
Yes.
we honor the children. For Day of the Dead, we honor the children, and tomorrow the adults. But we throw
Oh,
everything in. Yeah. And the
JoAnn,
okay.
pets
JoAnn,
and everything.
there was this, I saw something on the Instagram and this lady was criticizing the monster drink, and I think you had a
Mhm.
picture of that.
I don't
And
drink. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but they had a skull. I think they had a skull, and she was criticizing that. And then in the letter O, she says, "And why do they have a cross here?" And I think it had a skull and they had a cross on it. And then I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, oh, okay, I agree with Janet. I didn't know anything about that. I thought she was really, cutting the drink down, because now I know she didn't know anything about what she was talking about.
The
Had
symbolism. Yeah.
Yeah,
yes,
I don't
yes.
know
It
anything
had
about the drink, but
But
they
she was,
do.
well, I think there was something in Spanish too, or something, what it was, but she was criticizing the whole drink, who made it, where it was from, and everything. But when I listened to your presentation, I have a better perspective of why there was a cross there, in
Yeah.
place with the picture of a skull, and
Yeah,
so
a lot of symbolism for sure. A lot of, and goes back to Christianity and
yeah.
the if it weren't for this, there's so much you know I don't know, I get so tired of all the critique about, oh, this culture stole from this one or whatever. But had the Spanish not conquered Mexico, then Europe wouldn't have marigolds. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. I mean, there's just a lot of richness, when yeah, a lot of bad things happen when Columbus and whatever, but yet, would we be who we are today if
If we
not
didn't
for
have
them?
all of these,
If
yeah.
we didn't have all, my my father was born here. My father was Japanese, and it's so funny. So he married my mother. My mother was from Mexico, and we used to ask, how did you end up, or why or whatever. Anyway, they got divorced. She thought she was too high maintenance. And then he married a flaming redhead from Kansas City, a white woman. My family is all mixed up and it's beautiful. And our stepmother was fabulous. And we learned so much from her that I would have not known had he not married her. So, I think it's just a way to celebrate the world around us in our own little communities, in your own home, doing whatever you want to do. I think it's beautiful.
Yes, right or wrong, it's our history,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we should remember it because there's always something good comes from everything.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think I think that's Janet, right?
Yes.
Yes,
And I like what she said, right or wrong. Right or wrong, that's so true. It's us, right?
yes.
This is Jane. I always thought of the skeletons as being something that I wasn't fond of, but I had an opportunity to travel with a federal grant. And when we were out in Boston, some of the cemetery type things that we were visiting had these skull things on the tombstones. And they were explaining something more about that was similar. It reminded me of your conversation today about that it really wasn't a negative connotation to have those things on tombstones, and these tombstones are a couple hundred years old. So I thought that was rather interesting that I could tie that with your conversation today.
And Jane, a lot of people over the years, I've been doing this for a good 20 years or whatever, and people have said, oh, you just had to get on the bandwagon and follow that fad. And actually, no, I was like you guys. I didn't, even though that was my culture, nobody, there were 9 kids. My parents didn't have time to do stuff like this, nor would they have had the resources to do it. But as we got older, and like I said, my sister studied in Mexico, and she brought back a lot of the traditional cultural practices and food and whatever, and taught me all this, you know, then you kind of start like you guys. I didn't know any of this. So it's not like I was born with it, and I love learning. So it's still a learning process when people will say, "Oh, and guess what? Did you know this or that?" And wow, you know, I'm always learning something. So I love when like this forum that Scott provides for us is such a great avenue for learning and sharing. And I've learned like some of um, the presentations that I've heard. I've learned so much, you know, and so, and we're all from different parts of the country, and that's what I love about it, because we're kind of isolated here, and probably Carrie in Alaska and so forth. So this kind of opens up the world, at least to me, and
Mm.
I love interacting this way. And I wish I could, you know, there's some days that I can't, and the presentation is so good, and so I go online and look at it. It's amazing. What a library you've created, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, JoAnn.
And I come from a family I'm 100% German ethnicity, and we've got a large family. There's 14 living siblings. Like you have a
Wow.
large family as well. But we often laugh because my husband's kind of Czech with some English, and we have a Scott-Irish name, and we love you know, Mexican food and Italian food and Chinese food, and it's just, I think, so much cool that you can be from one culture and love so much from all the other cultures that you experience. So
you know, that's so true. Last night a friend brought over some what do you call those, the bratwurst, because I spent some time in Germany teaching at a university, and then also I had a German student teacher live with me. So we would go back and forth, and I just fell in love with it. So last night she brought over some bratwurst. She said, "Trick or treat." It was a treat.
and I wasn't inducted to that until in recent years from my children. We never had bratwurst. We had the old hot dogs or wieners.
We
So,
learned a lot. Huh? Yeah.
well, thank you for all of this.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
everybody.
it.
If you have
Okay.
any questions, you can email me, or well, Scott has this online, right? He's recording, yeah.
Yeah, I'm recording.
Thank you all for waking
So
up so early to join us.
JoAnn,
JoAnn.
I thank you so much, and I just want to reemphasize or restate I learned so much on this myself, and it was interesting. I was watching a little program the other day about, does anyone in here know their grandfather's father? And you know how fast it is. They said in 100 years from now, everything we own, will somebody also own it. And 100
Yeah.
years from now, how many people remember us? And so we do some things through family history, you know, through our church and through our personalities. But this just fits right in there. And I appreciate it. Beautiful slides today. I appreciate all the comments and everybody being here. And JoAnn's got two others that I have recorded, and they're on the Oregon FCE website. They're actually on YouTube. It's easier to just go there and click on it because it takes the link right to it on there. And I find out that sometimes we may only have 13 or 14 on, or 20 or whatever it is, but I get a report from YouTube on how many are going and watching it. And I get emails all the time. I couldn't be there in person, but I'll guarantee you people will watch this and the others that are there.
Yeah, and if
So
you have a chance, try to watch that movie Coco. It's so cute, and it'll give you another layer of understanding. It's really darling. Yeah.
yeah,
Our son with his little girls has movie night every Friday, and they watch
Oh.
similar things. So I'm going to have to see that when they're out at Friday night with popcorn at grandma's house, that we see if we can't do Coco. I
Good
think I've
idea.
actually heard the title, but knew nothing about what it was about. So you're just
Yeah.
enriching me in many ways.
Yeah.
I feel enriched with all of you too. And like I said, I don't know, Scott, you're the only one that I know that does such a comprehensive gathering of resources for all of us to tap via these presentations. It's amazing.
I'm just the coordinator. You guys are the presenters. I learned so much, and I've really enjoyed it. And you made me feel really good when you said that how the resources, and it was just kind of an idea off my mind to do something during COVID, and I'm going to continue it as long as I've got presenters. And I do have somebody for December and January of 2024. Can you imagine that?
No,
And
no,
then,
not at
and
all.
then, so if there's anybody else out there, and by the way, you do not have to be a professional. If you were on here a little early, JoAnn and I were kind of struggling a little bit trying to get this thing
Yes.
going. And we're all amateurs. We're just working on it. And so if you need if you got a presentation you'd like to give, some lesson you taught in your group or your community or whatever it might be, just let me know and I'll get you lined up there. Lavonda has actually done at least one that I know
Yeah,
of.
that was my first one, and Scott made it easy for me. So I've done several more, but I will do something next year, 2024, for you. I just
Okay.
haven't really put it all together yet.
Okay.
Lavanda did one for our convention and she sang to us, so
Oh.
that was a lot of fun.
Oh, I
That
didn't
was a
get.
lot of fun.
I want to see that one.
Well, I'll try to do something there, but it was at the conference in
Right.
the national conference in Kentucky. And it was music for the seniors,
Okay.
it'll help their brain. Yeah. So
Okay.
I sang
Yeah.
a few songs there, and
I-
it was like songs that we all remember hearing.
Yeah. So
and I'm Jane, and Sue and I are state officers for Nebraska, and we did that music lesson and put stuff together and did it's not a PowerPoint, it's document slides, but we did it at state, and it was very well received.
Yeah.
But my
Oh,
question for Scott is do you have December and January dates already?
it'll be the first Wednesday of the month.
Okay, first one. I like to put it in the calendar.
Okay.
So that I tried not to forget to tap in. So
Yeah. Well,
first Wednesday.
I tried to send out three. I try to send one out right after this meeting's over, which and I'd have to look. I just went and looked. She's one of our new state officers from Tennessee. And she's going to do the one in December and the January one. I can't remember offhand, but I always try to do them the very first Wednesday of the month. And the only time I change that is I have to do that last one on Thursday. And the reason why is because our state conference is on that Wednesday.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for the reminder.
And I'd love to come to any of the conferences. I'd love to come to Nebraska to your state conference. I haven't been there. I'd like to come to Kansas, but there's exactly the same day. Exactly.
Well,
Well,
we'll have to remember to see if we can invite you next year.
Okay.
Next year is in Nebraska.
We do one every year in Nebraska, but we go from one part of the state to the next. So we were in Western Nebraska this year. We'll be in Central Nebraska next year. And then my district, the Eastern director, will be in 2 years in the eastern part of the state. So
yeah, and Bonnie and I drove through Nebraska and we stayed one night. We actually stayed one night going to the national conference in Nebraska and one night on the way home.
Oh, so what cities?
Sydney on the way, and then on the way home, and I can't remember. It was a big convention center. It's right on 80. I can't remember. Kearney.
Oh, Kearney. Yes, we have a lot of
Yeah.
conferences there.
Yeah,
Yes.
I noticed. I could tell that by the hotel. I appreciate everybody being here, and like I said, we're all a bunch of amateurs, and we just get together, and it's a wonderful format. And I actually have another one I'm going to do someday when there's an opening, but you're going to have to wait on it. It's on electric cars.
Oh,
nice.
that'll be interesting.
That's pretty relevant right now.
And I did one at the state. I did the one on the state on human trafficking. So I might do that one too. So, but I like to let other people do it. All right. Well, thank you very much. I will record this. I'll have it out in a day or two. I'm using a different laptop. My other laptop, it wasn't dead, but it was near dead. I need to have a Day of the Dead for it almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Happy Day of the Dead, happy Thanksgiving, and
Yes.
see you next month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, JoAnn.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you all.
JoAnn.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
again.
Bye. Thanks, JoAnn.